Hi beautiful beings, welcome back to Shelter in the Storm with A Course in Miracles lesson number 71. Right, we are still in part 2 of chapter 5, The Voice for God. So we'll just read on from where we got up to yesterday. The Holy Spirit calls you both to remember and to forget. You have chosen to be in a state of opposition in which opposites are possible. As a result, there are choices you must make. In the holy state, the will is free, so that its creative power is unlimited, and choice is meaningless. Freedom to choose is the same power as freedom to create, but its application is different. Choosing depends on a split mind. The Holy Spirit is one way of choosing. God did not leave his children comfortless, even though they chose to leave him. The voice they put in their minds was not the voice for his will, for which the Holy Spirit speaks. The voice of the Holy Spirit does not command, because it is incapable of arrogance. It does not demand, because it does not seek control. It does not overcome, because it does not attack. It merely reminds. It is compelling only because of what it reminds you of. It brings to your mind the other way, remaining quiet even in the midst of the turmoil you may make. The voice for God is always quiet because it speaks of peace. Peace is stronger than war because it heals. War is division, not increase. No one gains from strife. What profiteth a man if he gain the whole world and lose his own soul? If you listen to the wrong voice, you have lost sight of your soul. You cannot lose it, but you cannot know it. It is therefore lost to you until you choose right. The Holy Spirit is your guide in choosing. He is in the part of your mind that always speaks for the right choice, because he speaks for God. He is your remaining communication with God, which you can interrupt but cannot destroy. The Holy Spirit is the way in which God's will is done on earth as it is in heaven. Both heaven and earth are in you, because the call of both is in your mind. The voice for God comes from your own altars to him. These altars are not things, they are devotions. Yet you have other devotions now. Your divided devotion has given you the two voices, and you must choose at which altar you want to serve. The call you answer now is an evaluation, because it is a decision. The decision is very simple. It is made on the basis of which call is worth more to you. My mind will always be like yours, because we were created as equals. It was only my decision that gave me all power in heaven and earth. My only gift to you is to help you make the same decision. This decision is the choice to share it, because the decision itself is the decision to share. It is made by giving, and is therefore the one choice that resembles true creation. I am your model for decision. By deciding for God, I showed you that this decision can be made and that you can make it. Okay, let's leave part 2 of chapter 5 there, and we will go over to lesson 71, dear ones. Only God's plan for salvation will work. You may not realize that the ego has set up a plan for salvation in opposition to God's. It is this plan in which you believe. Since it is the opposite of God's, you also believe that to accept God's plan in place of the ego's is to be damned. This sounds preposterous, of course. Yet, after we have considered just what the ego's plan is, perhaps you will realize that, however preposterous it may be, you do believe in it. The ego's plan for salvation centers around holding grievances. It maintains that if someone else spoke or acted differently, if some external circumstance or event were changed, you would be saved. Thus, the source of salvation is constantly perceived as outside yourself. Each grievance you hold is a declaration, an assertion in which you believe that says, if this were different, I would be saved. The change of mind necessary for salvation is thus demanded of everyone and everything except yourself. The role assigned to your own mind in this plan, then, is simple to determine what, other than itself, must change if you are to be saved. According to this insane plan, any perceived source of salvation is acceptable, provided that it will not work. This ensures that the fruitless search will continue, for the illusion persists that, although this hope has always failed, there is still grounds for hope in other places and in other things. Another person will yet serve better. Another situation will yet offer success. Such is the ego's plan for your salvation. Surely you can see how it is in strict accord with the ego's basic doctrine. Seek, but do not find. For what could more surely guarantee that you will not find salvation than to channelize all your efforts in searching for what is not there, for where it is not? God's plan for salvation works simply because, by following His direction, you seek for salvation where it is. But if you are to succeed, as God promises you will, you must be willing to seek there only. Otherwise, your purpose is divided, and you will attempt to follow two plans for salvation that are diametrically opposed in all ways. The result can only bring confusion, misery, and a deep sense of failure and despair. How can you escape all this? Very simply. The idea for today is the answer. Only God's plan for salvation will work. There can be no real conflict about this, because there is no possible alternative to God's plan that will save you. His is the only plan that is certain in its outcome. His is the only plan that must succeed. Let us practice recognizing this certainty today, and let us rejoice that there is an answer to what seems to be a conflict with no resolution possible. All things are possible to God. Salvation must be yours because of His plan, which cannot fail. Begin the 2 longer practice periods for today by thinking about today's idea and realizing that it contains 2 parts, each making equal contribution to the whole. God's plan for your salvation will work, and other plans will not. Do not allow yourself to become depressed or angry at the second part. It is inherent in the first. And in the first is your full release from all your own insane attempts and mad proposals to free yourself. They have led to depression and anger. But God's plan will succeed. It will lead to release and joy. Remembering this, let us devote the remainder of the extended practice period to asking God to reveal His plan to us. Ask Him very specifically, what would you have me do? Where would you have me go? What would you have me say? And to whom? Give Him full charge of the rest of the practice period, and let Him tell you what needs to be done by you in His plan for your salvation. He will answer in proportion to your willingness to hear His voice. Refuse not to hear. The very fact that you are doing the exercises proves that you have some willingness to listen. This is enough to establish your claim to God's answer. In the shorter practice periods, tell yourself often that God's plan for salvation, and only His, will work. Be alert to all temptation to hold grievances today, and respond to them with this form of today's idea. Holding grievances is the opposite of God's plan for salvation, and only His plan will work. Try to remember today's idea some 6 or 7 times an hour. There could be no better way to spend a half a minute or less than to remember the source of your salvation and to see it where it is. Lesson 71. Now for Jesus' commentary. Only God's plan for salvation will work. I have to peek around to make sure I've got it on the middle of the screen for you to see. You are blessed beings, indeed. I am that one you know as Jesus. What wonderful words these are to realize that chasing your tail around the planet year after year, decade after decade, no longer appeals to you. It no longer tempts you. Temptation, often in your society's definition, is seen as evil, dirty, and unholy in some way. But what we want you to understand is that you have, in your separation from all that is, in your separation from love, placed your own temptations in the world. That, dear ones, is why they appeal to you. They are not placed here by the devil. The devil is a psychological fantasy, a mythology figure invented to separate you from the knowledge that you design your own temptations. You design your own temptations, and that is why they seem irresistible. We want to go into this idea of desire and temptation a little bit in this lesson. It's very important you understand the results of following your desires, your passions, and your interests. All of these things are not the same. There are some deep-seated passions within your mind that you want to deepen your knowledge about. It could be music, art, cooking. It could be anything, but you know what it is. It's that thing you always love to do, and that's always interesting to you. Even if you're not doing it as a job, you think, I would love to be able to work at that full time. Then there are other things in a more superficial part of your ego consciousness, the part of your mind that is separated from guidance and in opposition to God's plan. That may be your love of chocolate cake, your love of promiscuous sex or drugs. These things are not the same. Often you hear that, well, you cannot follow your desires, otherwise you would just be all over the map. There is a difference between a deep-seated interest and passion about a subject and that superficial pleasure-seeking activity of the ego. We want you to differentiate between those two things, because if you believe that to do what you feel drawn to do is evil, then you will not live a happy life. Excuse me. You will not be able to pursue that purpose you came here to fulfill. You will see it as a temptation of the devil, as evil in some way. So when you have a feeling to do something, stop for a moment and ask, is this contributing to the overall health of my life? Is this something that has always been with me and always brought a smile to my face? Or is this some distraction? Is this some temporary band-aid on a negative feeling I'm having, so to go and drink a beer or buy a pair of boots will only make me feel better temporarily? Those are the ones we want you to look at. Those are the ones we want you to take a break from, or even postpone. If you want to go shopping, and shopping is your thing to make yourself feel better, tell yourself you can go shopping tomorrow. Today, you are going to look at why you want to go. What is it in you causing the agitation? What is it in you causing that feeling? I have to soothe myself. It is so important for you to understand that constantly soothing yourself does not benefit your spiritual and consciousness evolution. You must be willing to sit once in a while with your discomfort and ask the question, what am I trying to tempt myself with here? What am I trying to hide from myself? So, your temptations are yours. They are your idols, and they will fall. We are happy to tell you that your idols will fall, and you will come into alignment with truth. I am that one you know as Jesus, and we will speak to you tomorrow. Namaste, blessed ones. Much love.